And so he concludes the chapter by saying, man marches always onwards to receive ever fresh illuminations from an infinite reality which every moment appears as a new glory. And the recipient of the divine illumination is not merely a passive recipient. Every act of a free ego creates a new situation and offers further opportunities of creative unfolding. So what is this? How is this relevant to us and the time we're in? Well, it's relevant to all of us because we're all selves. We're all egos who are on this journey, and he's telling us to really go for it, to really reach for something much beyond what you think yourself might be. And just by chance on Wednesday, I happened to be teaching in Cambridge, and you wouldn't think I would have forgotten with all of this in my head, but I hadn't made that connection. And a friend of mine was walking me somewhere, and she said, "Oh, I just want to go this way." And she took me outside Iqbal's house, and there's a plaque saying Iqbal lived here, poet, philosopher. And it made me think that, he's kind of trodden the places we're treading, and he also encountered the West in a way that we are, and was troubled by that position of almost creating new experiences, a new world, which I think we also have as a challenge. And the model that he lays out might be an interesting one to really engage with rather than be afraid of modern knowledge, and then to unapologetically draw on our sources to embellish and develop that knowledge further. And that takes a lot of courage. Takes a lot of courage. I mean, if you think about all of your own fields that you work in and the work that you're doing, how do you come to integrate your religious, spiritual knowledge and really develop these concepts within the Quran in terms of living practices that complement and work with the knowledge that you're using in your everyday lives? These aren't separate things, because, as Iqbal says, the point of religious knowledge was consciousness raising. It wasn't just a mere set of kind of practices. The practices were there to help you reach these higher states. So I think the challenge to us, open to us, is to make knowledge relevant to us and expand the possibilities of our worldview. And I was reminded of this even in my own field of psychology, and Iqbal says this in his book, where he feels that modern-day psychology is only using a tiny fraction of its potential, because in understanding the self in the limited way that it has, it doesn't allow for the possibility of these incredible experiences. And I was reminded of that also quite coincidentally when I went to Turkey, and I met somebody who was a director of Islamic studies. And he said to me in Turkish, somebody was translating, when I told him about the work he did, he said, "Oh, tell her if she does anything to put the spirit back into psychology." And he said to me, "You should read Iqbal, and then you should read Rumi, and then you should read Ibn Arabi." And it was actually after coming back from there that the critical reading group presented itself. So there's a big task for us to do. And in terms of the work that I do a lot of work with Muslim clients as a psychotherapist. And one of the things I notice is that we come from cultures that are very much dominated by a collective notion of self, that very much emphasize the interrelational. And there's not a problem with that, because remember, Iqbal in his Asrar-i-khudi goes on to develop what our relations should be. But he starts with the individual, with the ego. And I noticed that for a lot of the people I work with, and mainly Pakistanis, to even begin to reflect on self feels like a selfish act. So that latent idea of khudi as being selfish and being a vanity and an arrogance still persists today. And I think by falling into that, we close off a huge set of possibilities and potential that we might have, because even the prophetic example is of the Meccan period, where there is immense introspection within a small number of individuals that then leads to the wide-scale change and the setting up of Medinan society. So starting with the self, I think, is absolutely crucial. And if we don't do that, if we don't expand the horizons within us, anything that we produce externally and outside of us will reproduce those very same limitations. And I think we need to be really careful of that. And that's why that space of the critical reading group has been really important. And my experience when I went first was quite crucial, actually, because I noticed that as Muslims, we tend to set up very limiting spaces for ourselves. We tend to not venture into areas or ask questions about really deep concepts within our traditions that require us to reflect and think and go beyond our own limitations. And I'll just finish by saying, yeah, if we were to respond to his call, really I think we would be a different community to what we are today. Thank you.